I first want to start by thanking the organizers for inviting me to an event that has so many women in it, which is very different from the usual conferences that I participate in. So thank you very much for the opportunity. First, I work at the Woodrow Wilson Center, which some of you who visited last fall know now that it's the nation's monument to President Woodrow Wilson, who was the only president to have a PhD. So the idea is to bring academics to the service of the government, to widen the conversation in Washington, and thereby improve policy over time. This initiative has moved beyond just including academics, and increasingly includes women, more women, especially under the leadership of our new president, Jane Harman. And in that spirit, I'm very glad to be able to be here and encourage you also to widen the debate in this country towards the reforms that need to be made to enter the European Union. I've spent many years sort of analyzing the EU accession process in post-communist Europe, and especially in the last two, I've spent trying to bring together Americans and Europeans to work harder, to cooperate, to make sure that Serbia and the other Western Balkan countries have a place in the EU. And if there's one thing that I want to tell you today, is that if you have ideas about what should change in Serbia, if there's a policy that you want adopted, if there's any issue that needs to be resolved, this is your best chance to do it. Serbia just got recognized for all of its hard work over the last few years. It's now a candidate country. And this is exactly the period that the EU has a lot of leverage, but you too, as civil society organizers, as politicians, can join with that leverage and get a lot of work done. I know also that in this country and in other countries in the region, there's a lot of frustration with the EU. There's a lot of frustration with the EU in the European Union, in the United States, and there are a lot of reasons for that, good reasons. You know, there's a crisis going on now. They failed in this region before, and it's definitely, when you look around Europe, it's definitely not a panacea for everything. There are still clearly a lot of challenges that even EU members face. But I'd like to ask you to challenge that perception that you may have about the EU. If you look at it from a little bit of a different angle, you might find that this is actually a huge opportunity, as I'm trying to tell you today. Certainly EU decision-making is slow, the leadership is distracted, and the EU itself may not be the best guarantor to protect women's rights or deliver public goods that you are asking for. But I think it's important to realize what the EU does best. And that is that it does better than any other international organization, any other state. It creates tools to make states better at being more effectively guaranteeing rights and better at distributing public goods. And that's the focus of the EU enlargement process. It's not just about getting the stamp of approval of the EU, but it's actually working to change the way that the government in Serbia works today. So rather than sort of joining a group that I know exists all over this region that's sort of disparaging the EU, being cynical about the EU, I think you as a civil society organizer, as a politician, as a businesswoman, should become more familiar with what the EU is requiring accession countries to reform. Also, you know, in terms of gender discrimination, in terms of judicial reform, but also on the many other issues that are included in the 100,000 pages of directives. There's a lot to work with there, and that will become a basis for promoting what it is that you want, what the change that you want to see. The next issue is to read all of the reports that come from the Commission. The Commission is following Serbia closely. And I think if you feel like the EU is neglecting this country or the other countries of the region, if you read those reports that come from the Commission every year, you'll realize that they are paying attention. You should look for the issue that you are supporting in those documents. And if you do, you'll realize that you have new leverage with this government. If you don't find your issue in the report, write a report and send it to the Commission. There are people who deal with Serbia every day. They've been working on Serbia for many years, and I think it's your job to become familiar with those people and try to get their attention and make sure that your work is addressed in those reports. Also, look for successful examples of what you want to happen in Serbia and other EU member states. That'll give you extra leverage. It'll give a blueprint to your government to follow to make sure that you achieve what it is that you want. The EU clearly has shown that it has leverage over Serbia. Serbia has made a lot of tough decisions over the last 2 years. And I congratulate Serbia. You should also congratulate your government for making those difficult choices. And by linking your issues to this process, you're going to increase your leverage. You're going to be able to add a push from below to the push from above to make sure that the change that you want to see will happen here. Because the success, the process, the push from below isn't really a necessary condition. It hasn't happened everywhere. It may even seem to slow down the process if civil society gets too feisty and asks for too much of its government. But I urge you to reconsider that as well. The goal here isn't just getting a badge of membership. The goal is to participate in this enlargement process, which is to really revamp the democracy, the institutions of this government. So that's the goal here, and I urge you all to participate in it.